And we're going to start. And we're going to start with Dr. Krosner, I presume.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm going to show you how to make, since we're having smaller groups this year, I'm going to show you how to make a fancy schmancy turkey, but just for a small group. This is an Empire frozen turkey breast, not frozen, excuse me, half turkey breast. Trader Joe's has them. If you don't keep kosher, there are, I think, frozen ones at the different Ralphs and such. I'm just going to make my screen bigger so I can watch what I'm doing. It's going to take me 1 second. I want to be able to see what you see. So what I'm going to do now, this is a little teeny bit advanced compared to the things I made with you guys last time. It does involve cutting. You're going to take your turkey breast. This is actually inspired by a Tuscan recipe. You're going to peel the skin off. It's very easy to separate. And you're going to save it off to the side. Now here comes the only thing that might be a little challenging to do, but it's not hard and it doesn't have to be pretty. Make sure your knife is sharp. You're going to take this off the bone. So what you do is you just cut along the bone. Don't be intimidated. This is not a hard thing to do. It looks harder than it is.
Says the surgeon.
Well, that's true.
Exactly.
I am a surgeon.
Right.
So you just follow the bone, and then you just turn the knife as you get to the top, and you take it all off. Now, you may be able to find boneless turkey breast in the store. They don't sell kosher of that, but they may sell it at the non-kosher markets. If that's not a consideration for you.
You could order through Orange County Kosher.
Oh, can you?
Breast.
Boneless? All right. And that would save you that part. But you see, it didn't take me long. I've only done that 2 other times in my life. It's not a hard thing to do. I'm going to take this out of the view. And now here's the part where someone else is going to be going for a few minutes because I'm going to be doing something loud and boring. It takes about 6 or 7 minutes. I timed it this afternoon. It takes about 6 or 7 minutes to pound this flat. You take 2 pieces of saran wrap and you put the meat in between. And if you have a meat mallet, which I do not, and I don't know anyone who does, but they exist, you can use that. Or you can take a rolling pin and you just lay that saran wrap out, and then you're going to hit it. You just got to beat that meat as thin as you can until it's about 1/4 of an inch. So it's about 1/4 of an inch. And I'm going to have someone else talk, and I'm going to mute myself, or Beth is going to mute. I think I can mute myself so you don't have to hear that pounding. And then I believe Ross is going to show you what he's doing and then come back.
Okay, Ross is going to take over with his recipe.
Hi, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well tonight. When I was asked to do this tonight, I was asked, what did you want to make? And I wanted to do turkey, but then I decided, no, I didn't want to do a whole turkey. So then I was going through, do I do mashed potatoes, stuffing, and everything? To me, I don't know, it sounded boring. So a few years ago, I made Beth and I both made sweet potato tamales. So
We don't see,
what
we
was
don't
that?
see Ross.
What?
We're not seeing you.
You can't see him?
No, no.
Can anybody see him?
Yeah,
And Marguerite can see. I just,
he's coming through on your computer rather than his own. But if you pin his view, you can get him.
I see him.
He is pinned on.
I see now.
So I'm looking down at Beth's computer. My camera's over here.
Yeah.
So
some people are saying they're
kinda
not seeing. So let me
No, we see him. I think she meant the sound. The sound is taking us back to your screen.
Yeah, I think
I see him.
It's Beth.
I see him in the gallery, but not in the speaker view.
what you need
Right,
to
you
do.
won't see him in speaker view because we can't have both mics going at the same time, otherwise it echoes.
Yeah.
Oh, so we'll just watch him in the gallery, I guess.
Watch him in the gallery, or if I pin his video, which is what I thought I had done, let me go back to it. and
It is pinned. If people want to, you can also, if it's not pinning, you can individually pin his screen by
Right.
clicking the 3 dots in his
Correct, and it'll say,
Zoom box and press pin.
Oh, I got it. I
Right,
see
see
him.
it?
Okay.
there you go.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thanks, oh, thanks for asking. Okay, back to you, hon.
Is Dr. Krosner still pounding?
He is
his
still
meat?
pounding the meat.
Okay. So this is an easy recipe. It looks intimidating, but it's an easy recipe. So this morning I made a filling. They say to use refried beans. So instead of that, I took onions, celery, sauteed it with garlic, added cumin, cayenne pepper, chili powder, and kind of cooked that down a little bit. And then I added a can of black beans without the juice and just let that kind of simmer. And then I mashed it. And then I took another can after it was mashed and added that to it with drained and mashed that into it too. But I left it kind of chunky. When I made it before, they said just use the canned refried beans and it just tasted a little bland. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make the masa, which is the dough, they call it, that the filling is going to be surrounded by. And this is easy too. So it's a cup of lard, excuse me, not lard.
That's your
vegetable
other
shortening.
life, not this life. Not life in this house.
I thought I would say that. Salt. And then you just beat it up. And another thing that I was told when you make tamales is just make sure everything's whipped up really well. Take your time and whip it, even if it goes longer. So you just whip the vegetable shortening and salt together. Can you hear? Can people hear?
I think so.
A tablespoon of brown sugar,
And don't worry, it'll be on the website.
a teaspoon of baking powder. Still very easy. What I'm doing is what you should never do is lift the bottom of the bowl so it hits the blades. This is a really old, this is 31 years old, I think, this kitchen thing. So that's why I lift it up. So it helps whip. But you shouldn't do this at home.
Only in my house.
Now I'm going to scrape it down really quick.
We could have christened the new KitchenAid.
No, we're not going to christen it with this. I have vegetable stock that I'm going to alternate with the corn flour. Now this is, what is this? Harina.
Masa harina.
Masa harina, and this one's a little bit finer. Sometimes you find it and it's thick. This is fine. This is almost their instant type. So I'm going to slowly put it in with a little bit of the liquid, a little bit more liquid, finish it off. And I'm just gonna let it go, and it's kind of, I would say a little pasty, not real dry, kind of pasty. What I have here is sweet potato that I roasted in the oven with skin on, just on a sheet pan with foil for about 425 for about 45 minutes till it softens. And then I let it cool. The recipe calls for 2 pounds. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add it to the cornmeal mixture. Oops, I missed a little, but that's okay.
Yes, Judy, they are peeled.
I did peel them. I peeled them and scraped the inside out.
Canned sweet potatoes don't come across our threshold.
It comes out like a kind of a cool light orange color. It's kind of a cool color. You can kind of see it. I'll show it when I take it out. I'm just gonna let it go around a little bit more. And then we're gonna start assembling them. So they're really easy to assemble. What I noticed when I was steaming them, they take a little bit longer than what the recipe says. So once I show you that, you'll see that.
Miss Puffs.
What was that?
I don't know, but I don't get the reference.
What reference?
Simus Puffs.
Simus puffs. Oh, that you can make. Yeah.
You want to know, I was
Yeah, no,
thinking
it's
about
just
it. It's all the same. It's like a gefilte fish. It's all similar. A matzo ball. And instead of being wrapped and boiled, instead of being boiled, it's wrapped. So you take your corn husks that I have soaked and you open them, and you open them with the point down. I don't know if you can see it. I'll try
There
to
you go.
show you this way. You smear a little on, and it doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, it's supposed to be a 1/4 inch, like a 2 to 3 inch square, but I do it a little bit more. Then you take a little bit of the filling, you put it in the center.
Sorry, is
And
that
then you
parchment
take-
paper? I missed that part.
What?
What?
Is that parchment paper you're smearing it on, or is it phyllo?
Oh,
No,
this
it's
is
the-
corn husk. I'm sorry, these are corn husks. This is the outside, you know, when you get corn on the cob and it's green and you pull those off, this is the same thing. These are the husks that surround the corn.
Okay.
How long do you have to soak them?
Where do you
Quick.
get them?
It takes like 10 minutes with hot water. You can do it under the sink or you can pour boiling water on it, but they soften up pretty quick.
I've seen them at the 99-cent store.
Okay.
Really?
Besides the 99
Mhm.
cent store, where can
Ross
we-
got them at Smart
Smart
and Final.
and Final.
Smart and Final
Yeah.
always has them.
And they
do.
sell them in this ridiculous huge container.
So if
I mean,
anybody needs any, there's 743 left at my house right now.
So what I smeared it on, and now what I'm going to do is I fold one side and then the other side, and what happens is it kind of folds together, and it works pretty well. So I'm going to take one side and then fold the other side and twist this up. Now what I have here is,
You're gonna have to move that so they can see.
I'm going to do another one. I have a steam pan with water going, and on the bottom I've lined it with wet corn husks. That helps. You don't have to do that, but it helps it from not sticking, and it evens out the heat to make it even when they cook. So what you do is you have the little tamale and you put it in, just like that. And you keep lining them around the pot. I'll do a couple more, but I have some already made, so.
Sue is just asking again, what was in the filling? It's the sweet potato
Which
mixture.
filling?
Sue, do you mean what Ross is putting in the corn husk? Sue Hermes? Are you there?
No, the other stuff that he put on top of it, that,
This?
yeah.
This is black bean.
That's-
It's like
Oh,
a
that's the black
refried
bean
black
mixture.
bean.
Okay, okay, thank you.
See, it works really well, kind of. And you give it a little pinch on the bottom. Some people twist them like this and then lift them up. Either way, you just line them all the way around, almost like if you're making stuffed cabbage. Similar, because stuffed cabbage, you line the bottom with cabbage too. Can you guys see?
Yes.
Thank you.
They're yummy.
Somebody's answering. Somebody's.
And just so everyone knows, when I made these years ago, it made far more than I anticipated or than the recipe said. And thank goodness I looked into it, and they can freeze. And they froze really well, and we could pull them out a few at a time and then just defrost and then steam them again.
So that's it. So you fill up your pan, and what you'll end up having to do is take some of the other leaves, leftover leaves, and tuck them around the sides, because unless you're making a bunch, I mean, it'll fill it up almost all the way. But that'll help keep them standing up. You can do them a little bit laying down too. It doesn't matter. It's not going to leak out. So what you do is you steam them for about 45 minutes to an hour on just, I don't know, what would you call it? Medium heat.
Mhm.
And you keep adding water. Then what you
So that you
get-
don't burn your pan.
Yeah, so you don't burn your pan.
You cover the pan?
You cover, yes, with a lid on top.
Is there a way you can MacGyver this if, let's say, one does not have a steamer pan?
You call
Yeah.
your aunt and she sends you one.
No, what you can do is either you can take a bowl or another a metal dish, pie pan or whatever, and put it in the bottom of a pot, and then cover the pot with the corn husks, or you can use foil and cover the bottom with foil, or make a scrunch a ball, push it on the bottom, and then cover with the corn husks, and that way, you know, as long as you have some space that it can steam in the water. Just remember to keep adding water, or else you'll burn the bottom.
If you had a steam setting on your oven, couldn't you do, what's the name of that fancy thing you once told me, and you make it in the oven and steam it with water?
Like a bain-marie?
Yes, that's it.
Yeah, like a bain marie.
Could you do
Yeah,
that?
well, no, because you can't submerge these. They're supposed to steam above the water. You don't want these to get wet.
Got
What
it.
about just use a wok steamer, the steamer basket?
Definitely, you can use a bamboo steamer, would work out perfectly. You may have to lay them on the side or tilt them a little bit. So this is what they look like when they come out. I mean, they're perfect tamales. Look, that was one I made earlier. The inside is fantastic. What I made here was I used a little, this is not kosher then for if you're having turkey. I put some crema on and some pomegranates, or you could use queso fresca, or you could make like a salsa or avocado.
I think when we did them, I picked up, and it's textured, the raspberry chipotle sauce at Costco,
that's
which is
right.
delicious. And that's what we used on Thanksgiving a few years ago when I did them.
That's right.
And there's also textured par sour cream products now, and yogurt.
Exactly. A lot of parm.
Right.
So that's it.
All right. Those look
Very good.
Those looks good. I've always wanted to try to learn to fold them, but I don't know.
It's easy.
Is it?
Yeah,
All right.
it's real easy.
All right.
I don't know. I always hear stories of like the ladies that used to work for me, and they would say that, you know, 5 or 6 of them would spend the whole day making these, and they'd make hundreds of them. So I can see why, and they would say it was really time consuming. I mean, they take and they tie them up really nice, and they just make them by the hundreds. So I can see where it would be an all-day thing, but they're easy to make, and they come out really good. You can flavor the outside really with whatever you want. I mean, you can just keep it plain, or, you know, put whatever you want inside. You can put brisket inside, you can put turkey inside. You can make it with cheese and which would be good.
And rolling it looks like using a sushi mat.
Exactly. Exactly. You could.
I like that.
I've even had dessert tamales.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Fruit in them. And,
I know in the holidays, during the holidays, they make beef and they make pork, and then they make pineapple with raisins.
Pineapple raisin.
Pineapple.
Is the holiday one. Yeah.
I know when Beth and I would go up to LA, they would make fresh corn ones that were made with the same similar way, but they would use fresh corn, and they would use the fresh green husks. So those were
Jalapenos and cheese.
What was that?
With jalapenos and cheese?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you are, the kosher cheese in Costco. Already ready, Parmesan.
Nice.
Awesome.
Nice.
All right.
All right, back to Seth. Thank you.
Actually,
Happy
Thank you,
Thanksgiving.
thank you.
I pounded turkey, and see now it's flat, and it's still on its saran wrap. And what we're going to do is, I've sautéed a small chopped onion, and then I put in some sliced mushrooms and sautéed them down. And now I'm going to add 2 crushed cloves of garlic. And this is the real heart of the dish. This is a tablespoon of chopped fresh sage, which is available nowadays in the supermarkets, and a tablespoon of chopped fresh rosemary, which a lot of us have in our yards, or you can get in the supermarkets. And you put those fresh herbs in there. I'm just going to stir that mixture together. And I'm going to take the mixture and I'm going to put it on the turkey breast. Now, the Tuscan recipe, this is adapted from a recipe from Tuscany in Italy, the good food part of Italy, the part with the tomatoes. And in Italy, they would take prosciutto, which is a type of ham, and lay thin slices down. Well, of course, I'm not going to do that here, but you could use some turkey pastrami, I suppose, or you could cook some kosher sausage and lay it in there. And I'm just spreading that mixture around till it covers most of the surface. And then I'm going to roll this up. And that's where the saran wrap helps, because I can lift it. And I'm just going to roll it like a cylinder. Doesn't have to be pretty. Doesn't have to be for nice. Roll it into a cylinder. And then what keeps some moisture in it, I don't know about you, but one of my favorite parts of the Thanksgiving turkey is the crispy skin. So I had the idea to save the skin that I just peeled off and lay that right back on top. Like that. Doesn't have to be pretty. Doesn't have to be nice. And then I've pre-cut some pieces of kitchen string. And you're just going to tie that up. You're going to truss it, is the special cooking term. And I'm going to tie it around the center twice, 2 different ties. I didn't make this one long enough, dagnammit. Luckily, I tie things for a living. And then I'm going to tie it lengthwise once, just to hold it together. Now, if you want to, you could sear it in a pan on some hot olive oil on each side. I'm not going to do that now in the interest of time, and I've made it without doing that, and you don't have to do that. But it does seal in some of the moisture. Cut your excess string, and then you're going to wash your hands. When I roast a turkey breast, I like to roast it on a little raft, made of some branches of cut rosemary from my yard, some thick slices of onion, some carrots. You wash them, you don't have to peel them, and some celery. That little raft adds some flavor as it roasts, and it also keeps the meat up so the heat can get under. I'm going to lay this on there. You could have put some salt and pepper in the mixture. I forgot to do that. So instead, I'm just going to put some pepper on top. And paprika. I'm going to put it in the oven at 350. It takes about an hour, and it comes out looking like this. These are my good oven mitts that I got from a good friend who happens to be watching and participating. And this is what the finished dish looks like. You cut the strings, let it rest for a little bit, and you serve it by the slice. This is enough for a family of 4. If you've got a family of 6 or 8, you can make 2 of them and just roast them side by side. It's going to be delicious. You're going to love it. And it's a lot easier than it looks. So enjoy, and now on to dessert.
So before we go on to dessert, I'm just throwing this out there. Someone has asked, what are all our chefs doing with all their food they're preparing? I'm just throwing it out there. Judy, let me find you on here.
Are we supposed to answer that now or after the dessert is made?
We can wait. We can.
Okay. Oh, I forgot to say one thing before Judy starts. It's considered de rigueur when you're cooking something to drink the kind of wine that you would normally drink if you were eating that dish. So you would never cook a steak and drink white wine. So this is a little half bottle of Pinot. I didn't drink it before I used my knife, but now I will. L'chaim.
L'chaim.
L'chaim, l'chaim.
Okay, Jude, let me get in there.
Okay, I am making a cranberry tart, a cranberry curd tart for Thanksgiving, something a little different, in addition to pumpkin pie. So in the essence of time, I have already cooked the cranberries, 12 ounces, I peeled with a peeler the rind off an orange, and it's in the pot with a cup of sugar and a half cup of orange juice. Now, I always keep a can of orange juice concentrate in the freezer so that I don't have to worry about having fresh oranges when I'm using them for cooking and baking. I've always got concentrate to reconstitute for that purpose. So that's been cooking here. The crust is already made. I made one yesterday with one. I would follow the recipe exactly, and today I'm doing it a little differently, but I'll show you what I did for the original crust. It was the almond crust that I made with almond flour that I have bought from Costco in the past, and it's textured, kosher, and it even says in teeny tiny microscopic print, kosher for Passover. So that was wonderful. This crust for the one I'm making now, I took a bag of almonds that I keep a lot of nuts in the freezer in various forms pre-prepared. So I had already in a food processor ground down a bag of almonds to make almond meal. So this crust is a little more rustic in texture and appearance. And you can see, these are some leftover. So I don't know how well you can see, but that's the almond meal is very light. And the ground almonds is a little coarser, nuttier. So this is my pre-baked for 10 minutes almond crust. Okay. So now I have done my 10 minutes of cooking the cranberries so that they pop. And you have to do it at low to medium temperature over the stove. And it's going to make a lot sometimes as they pop. So here is this step. Don't do what I did yesterday. You can either push all of that through a food mill or sieve like this, or take a immersion blender, a stick blender, and I forgot, and I did not have it away at the bottom. I started yesterday, so of course my kitchen got showered with cranberries. So I'm going to quickly, with some noise.
That would be one of your children laughing.
Oh, I'm
Okay, so when I did it yesterday, after I did that, then I put the cranberry mixture in a strainer and then pushed it through with the back of the spoon and scraped it, what came through, and it left the little bits of the peel here. This one I'm making in a more rustic style. I want a little more texture, so I'm not going to strain it. And also, by not straining it, it retains the bits of the skin, which has pectin, which will help thicken. So that's what I'm doing there. Now, before I continue, the next step is going to be adding 2 eggs, 2 whole eggs, and 2 egg whites. So when you're kosher, you don't want any blood in any eggs. So you always break your egg into a separate bowl. So take a look. So, and this is, I've got the 2 eggs plus 1 yolk already in my big bowl. Now I'm separating. Now some people can't do this. They're grossed out by doing it with their hand, but I am not. And I've already taken a look. There's no blood there. And then
and Judy, you're separating it in your bare hands. You don't tilt it from shell to shell.
No, that's such a waste of time.
I tilt it from shell.
But one thing, if your egg yolk breaks and you get some, first of all, if you get a piece of shell in your egg, it's hard to get out. So if you use the broken shell, you can scrape out little bits of shell. Or if you get a little bit of leakage of egg yolk, if it broke and you want to scoop it out of the whites, you can stick the shell and do it. And it just like a magnet, it adheres to the shell. Another tip is, I don't know if you know, but so now I've got these 2 extra egg whites. You can freeze egg whites for future use. So that's what I'm going to do. This stays in my side freezer at all times.
Judy, can you add, do you know if you can add a new egg white to an already set of frozen egg whites, or should you get a new container?
I've been doing that for years. I'm still alive to talk about it.
Look how we all are doing.
Exactly, that's my point.
Right.
No, civilization made it to this point without everything being so antiseptic. It's not dangerous.
How long can you keep
Shower
egg
every
whites in the fridge before you use them?
I keep them in the freezer. I keep it in the freezer, my jar. So they're frozen.
How would you keep egg yolks?
Egg yolks,
If you don't need the yolk, what do you do with them?
I tend to just use it. If I'm making
Yeah.
scrambled eggs, I throw in extra yolks. That's what I would do.
I wouldn't freeze a yolk.
No.
No.
If you look online.
And that's no yolk, right?
Consult,
I was
That's
gonna
no-
say that.
Food Professor Google. Everything's available online to find out. Okay, so now my cranberry mixture is hot. You cannot put hot directly into eggs without tempering them first because it will cook the eggs. The heat will cook the eggs. So the way you do that is you take a little, and this is not just this recipe, anytime, you take a little bit of your warm and you add it to the eggs and stir it up because you're trying to bring the temperatures to the same point before you add the eggs to the warm cranberry mixture. So I'm tempering.
Does it help by bringing the eggs to room temperature before you start cracking them?
Well, the eggs I did that helps, but just to make sure you don't want to throw out 4 eggs by making a mistake and having partially cooked eggs. So a little bit more, and then I'm going to add them. Okay, so now I think that's good, and I'm going to add them. And along with a stick of this paro, Thanksgiving with turkey. So this par of margarine is Fleischmann's unsalted. I also use Nucoa. Nucoa is very salty. If you use that, you need to always omit salt in your recipe because it'll be too much. So
Crisco
this
also
gets
makes a
mixed
butter flavored stick that's the same size as a butter stick that you can also use.
That
I
is
don't know if
true.
it tastes as good.
I can't find
Also-
Fleischmann's very often.
Kiehl's.
Oh, yeah,
Kiehl's
okay.
has it. Yeah, and
Sometimes
they have that
Fleischmann.
and Nucoa. And also, my daughter made this a few years ago. She used the product called Earth Balance, which I
Yes.
didn't realize it's available in sticks also. You don't want to use a whipped product in a recipe that calls for measuring it out for any recipe, because it's got so much air whipped into it, you're not getting the right amount of the actual product. You want to use a solid product. So now this goes back on the stove, cooks down a little bit. And you can see what this looks like. It's cooking.
Beautiful.
Up.
That
So
beautiful
how are we?
color.
Should I go quickly to the end?
We have time.
Okay, so let me let this cook a little more. Well, I think what I'll do, because this is going to take a bit and has to cool a bit. So the magic of television, imagine that this is cooked down a bit to reduce and then cools, like it cooks for like 10 minutes, then cools for 10 minutes before pouring it into the shell. This is going to be the more rustic one that's got a little more texture. It's not perfectly smooth and silky like the recipe calls for, but look, you can make those kind of alterations, not changing a chemical reaction. So it's just a stylistic change. So like the magic of television.
Mom, what about the orange juice? Did you already add that or are you not using it?
The orange was in the pot with the
Oh,
cranberries.
was in it? I missed that, sorry.
Orange juice, cranberry, sugar, and the orange peel.
Yeah, one thing that, because I made this a couple of years ago, just for everyone who's watching, even though it says to do it through a food mill, a lot of the comments said people who used the food mill, that the color was yucky. So all the people who used an immersion blender said they got this really beautiful color.
Which is absolutely true, because I made it after you did it, Dina, and I put it through the strainer and it absolutely lost the color. It was yuck. It tasted delicious, but it was yuck.
It had a sort of pale brownish color instead of that beautiful maroon, right?
Right.
If you strained it.
Right.
The skin adds a lot of the color.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the crust has been par baked for 10 minutes. When this finishes reducing and cooling a bit, that will then go in the crust and bake another like 15 minutes. So the magic of cooking on television, I pull out my baked one. Somehow magically is already garnished. So
She's got that really
beautiful.
fancy oven that adds garnish.
So that's the one that was done with the lighter crust with the almond flour, and where the peels, all the bits of peel, after I use the immersion blender, the bits of peel were then removed, pushing it all, the entire mixture through a strainer. So that's that one. It doesn't, to be honest, if you look, it doesn't look that different. This has little small texture, and this is smoother. So it's just stylistic, what a person might like. And then this crust is a darker crust with a little more texture.
Is that a removable tart pan?
Yes, that's a 9-inch removable tart pan.
Thank you.
It can also be done pie plate according to the recipe. Tart pans look very impressive though, and I think they're easier to deal with. And so it's removable, and I'll show you.
They certainly look fancier than pie plates, I'll give you that.
Yes, they do. Removable tart pan. And away, so when you finish baking and it cools, you just put your finger underneath, pop up, remove it. Your tart will be on here. And then what you can do, you don't need, as I showed with the apple tart or Shavuot, you don't need a big gigantic spatula. To separate the pastry from the bottom of the pan, use a baking sheet, and you might have to first use a knife to get at the edge, slide it carefully between the pastry and the pan to lift up a bit, and then use your baking sheet to slide under there as a gigantic spatula, and then your whole tart, whatever cake would be on here, and then just you slide it onto your presentation dish.
Or you can leave it on that metal disc on the presentation dish, and no one will know until you cut it.
Yeah, but
You can, however, when you go at it, it starts sliding around. That's the only problem.
It also can scratch your pan. Just so everybody knows, Judy did an almond crust. The original recipe also calls for a hazelnut crust. Adina, is that what you did, the hazelnut?
The hazelnut crust also calls for, let's see, I have it here. The reason I didn't want to that one was it also called for rice flour along with the hazelnuts. And I was looking to simplify and use ingredients I had here, and I've never even seen rice flour, and I was going to COVID searching for it.
I didn't do the hazelnuts. I was all set to, and I think you can get rye flour at, Whole Foods or, Fairway or whatever, but it's so complicated to shell them. So I read all the different comments about shelling them in the Martha Stewart way and this and that. And then I said, forget it. And I went with almond flour. I didn't even grind them.
So when I made it, I used hazelnuts that were already shelled because I'm not insane. And I used almond.
Yeah, I think you can get them at Trader Joe's.
Yeah,
now.
I got hazelnuts
Take the
and
skin off.
we took the skin off, and I think I used almond flour because I wasn't running all over to find rice flour. But the hazelnut, so I'm gonna put both crust
You can also
recipe.
Ground hazelnuts, but they're hard to find.
Right, so I'm gonna put both recipes in there. You can use whichever one you prefer. Susie, do you mean Sprouts has rice flour? And it was rice flour in the recipe, not rye.
Rice, R-I-C-E.
Rice, right, somebody wrote something about rye, but Susie, let me know, because you said Sprout does. I'm wondering if you mean that they carry the rice flour.
I think that part of the reason for that crust recipe, it was the original New York Times recipe, was to do a wheat-free recipe.
Right.
However, for people who are really celiac, there's just a lot of issues that may not be sufficient.
Okay.
Sufficient-
Amy is saying that yes, she gets rice flour at Sprouts. So if you really needed it or you wanted it, but like Judy said, don't be afraid to substitute something. That is why Professor Google is there to ask those questions. You know, you're in the middle of cooking and you realize you don't have something before you start running out. Google it, substitute for whatever it is, and it'll tell you. So,
Judy,
go ahead, Seth.
a question. What do you think would happen if you just cooked the cranberry and the orange juice, let them pop, and left it completely lumpy? Would that be an acceptable, like, super rustic version if people don't feel like blending?
I would think so. Yeah, I think this was just to make it look fancy, look different, but I think it would be fun, because when you look at a lot of cranberry pies and all, they're whole cranberries that have been cooked. So it's just style.
And yeah, the immersion blender is definitely a better choice.
And yeah, and be more careful if you use an immersion blender. It has to make contact fully with the bottom of your vessel. Otherwise, you have cranberry on your ceiling, windows, cabinets, floor, everywhere, like I did.
Luckily, you're not that fussy about cleanliness in your kitchen.
Right? It'll still be there in time for Pesach. Yeah, for me at least, the immersion blender is for me, the most important tool in my kitchen. Like if my immersion blender dies, it's being replaced immediately, no questions asked.
I love mine.
And for anyone who's never used one, they're not expensive. You get one for $20.
And for those of you who are looking at them, I was gifted one, a very expensive one. It doesn't work any better than the less expensive ones, and they don't last any longer than the less expensive ones.
Some of them are a little better. They can do some ice and things like that, and they come with
If you're going to use it for that kind of thing, but if you really just need it for soups and things. What, Marguerite?
Mine is a cheaper one that I don't remember where it came from, maybe Bubby and Zeta, and it is fine.
Maybe I gave it to you. Yeah, this is the wire cutter recommended one, and then it doesn't stain because it's not white.
My expensive one, someone in my house who is not in my house at the moment may or may not have left the big hand piece near the a burner, so part of it is a little melted.
Well, something you have to be careful with an immersion blender, if it comes with a lid, is that for the blades that you remember to remove it before you start blending, or else it'll sound really bad and take a long time, and you'll realize that you blended up the plastic cap and you have to throw out your food. That's a hot tip.
Oh, has that happened to you?
Another hot tip is to turn it off before you stick your finger in it, like my friend did.
Oh.
Well, I did unplug it. I unplugged it first.
Her husband was a doctor, so she's fine.
Or draw the electrical cord across the element and burn it.
Yep. Yes, Mommy. Yes.
Who did that? Because Micah and I both thought it was the other person.
And somebody burnt it on top of the
We don't know. Daddy and I just find things, and our children always say, I don't know how that happened. So we're gonna go with someone who's not in the house at the moment. Could have been a
Blame it
stranger.
on me. It was probably me. I do dumb stuff like
Might
that.
have been. Are there any other questions for our?
You ever answer what we're doing with all this food?
Oh yes,
Oh,
what are
well,
you
you
doing
know-
with all this food?
What I'm doing for Thanksgiving, because we're doing like Passover, everyone's going to be in their own homes and we'll Zoom, is I'm getting a split turkey breast from Trader Joe's Empire and experimenting with smoking it with a smoker box on the grill.
No, but the
Nice.
question was, what are you doing with all your,
You
the
have 2
ones
cakes.
you just made?
Eating it, what else?
You're eating 2 tarts. That is so not true.
Oh,
Does
you
your
don't know
tart
what
freeze, Judy?
What?
Does your tart freeze?
I don't know. There's not going to be anything left to freeze. I can
Definitely
guarantee.
eating
I'll
2
give
tarts.
some to my
It's
parents.
so good that you would just inhale. It's so good.
It's breakfast. It's
It
cranberries.
is definitely not breakfast.
My dish
It's
freezes.
whatever meal you want it to be.
Are you gonna freeze yours and use it for Thanksgiving?
Me?
Yeah, you're the only
No,
Seth on the call.
No, I'm making a whole turkey for Thanksgiving, even though it's just the 5 of us. But I'm gonna eat one tonight because we really love turkey, so I don't mind eating it 2 weeks in a row. And the other one, wrap up and freeze and save for a different time.
Okay.
But my dish freezes nicely.
What about the tamales?
The tamales will freeze.
Molly freeze.
Daddy's gonna sell them. They will freeze and I'm happy to hang on to them. Maya wants, she's telling me, yes, Maya does eat sweet potato with marshmallows for breakfast.
I messaged you privately.
Sweet potato marshmallow tamale sounds pretty good.
That sounds disgusting. And if any-
Marshmallow tamale? That's not vegetarian.
Trader
So
Joe's marshmallows are.
Yeah, Trader Joe's marshmallows are vegan, both
Yep.
the big ones
they are.
and the
They don't
minis.
melt well. They don't melt. They don't like. They just.
I will also include on the website, when I post these recipes, the tradition in our house after Thanksgiving, and then again, come New Year's, since it's such a cranberry time of year, is I make a cranberry challah French toast casserole that is delicious with a cranberry maple syrup. So I'll post that. If you have excess cranberries after the holiday and you don't know what to do with them, it's an easy dish to make.
And let me tell you also, if you buy more cranberries than you need, if you're using fresh cranberries for anything, then you can just take the whole bag of cranberries. You haven't washed it, you haven't done anything to it, you just toss it in the freezer.
Yep.
And then it's perfectly good for any cooked recipe.
That's why it says, this is the bag from Costco, the 2-pound bag. It says buy 2, freeze 1.
Yeah. So I always buy enough to have throughout the year because otherwise you don't find them. Same thing if you have pomegranates, if you pull the seeds, I know we'll pull them, let them dry out a bit, and then throw them in bags in the freezer so that we've got
Or
pomegranate
you
seeds all
lay
year.
them out on a baking sheet with sides and on a piece of wax paper, not touching each other, and let them freeze, and then just throw them in a Ziploc bag.
Yep. So if anybody's desperate for some pomegranates, let me know. I may or may not have some extra.
I have a suggestion about the egg whites to tag on to what Judy was saying.
Yes.
If you have to have a certain number of egg whites for a recipe, and you just keep adding to the jar, then you have to teach yourself about how many tablespoons is in an egg white. But you could take a Ziploc bag and you could put the 2 egg whites in it, seal up the Ziploc bag and write 2 egg whites on it. And then if you had a recipe that called for just 2, you could pull that bag out. You'll waste a lot of
Or you
Ziploc
just
bags.
go online and look up equivalents, like
Right.
what is the measurement of 2 egg whites?
I
Good
think it's like a
night.
tablespoon.
Good night.
If you look at
Good
the egg
night.
whites
Thank
and
you
butter,
very much.
to that
Thank you
tablespoon.
very much. Beautiful.
Hi,
I
Amparo.
love the show. I love
Hi.
to see you. You guys
Oh, come
look
say
gorgeous.
hi.
Amparo.
Beautiful,
Hi.
beautiful.
And this is the
Get a
taste
glass of
tester
wine.
of the house.
Good night. Bye.
Oh, that's